What's up? Tis I, Kill K. I did the unthinkable. I finally cleared P8 in the party finder, and here's my POV. I'm also going to be doing commentary, so you can mute it if you're not interested and throw on some VTuber ASMR or whatever you like listening to. I'm going to show both phases, and you can kind of use this as a soft guide for White Mage. So, party finder strats. This was on the Aether data center. Primal is my home data center, but I usually travel between the two to find specific parties. And for this, I was specifically looking for a clear party, not a high concept 2 prog, since I am rather comfortable with it. As the region player, you're usually group 1 and a west clock in southwest corner. Paired with your group 1 melee. Drop on an Aqua Veil for the main tank for these busters, since they're gonna eat a bleed, and main tank's gonna be eating a couple of autos as well. I didn't play perfect, and I don't consider myself an amazingly good raider, but I'm of the opinion that as long as you keep your party alive, your damage doesn't have to be optimal several weeks into the tier for a clear. So I'd rather play safe than sorry. You can't assume your co-healer will pick up healing in Party Finder. My co-healer for this clear, the Scholar, was actually pretty good about staying on top of things, but a couple of times in Phase 2, it was down to me using specific cures, bring the party up for the heal checks. Check for snakes, going south, healers and range in the back. It was a DPS bait. Don't stand too close or you can get clipped by a bird. Scholar stood a little closer than I was comfortable with, but ended up being okay since all the DPS were in. Birds and partners is probably the comfiest healing pattern. You definitely need to save a couple of heals, like a size or confession, in case you get the really bad patterns where healers have to start out and then end up out and spread. So always have a plan in case you get a bad manifold pattern. Overall, phase 1 of this fight is pretty consistent with Party Finder strats. Planning on making maybe a guide for PFing the Abyssos tier, since my first 5, 6, 7, and now 8 clears were done in Party Finder. So it's definitely possible. If you're interested in something like that, let me know, because I don't think there's any really good guides specific for Party Findering, at least on NA. Group 2 gazes. Again, don't greed gazes. I'm dropping like 2 GCDs here, but damage isn't a concern. We're like 6 or 7 weeks into the tier or something like that. As long as you don't troll the party, it's okay to drop 1 or 2 GCDs. And as you'll see later, damage isn't an issue. We overkill the boss by a ton. There's not really use parsing if you're not best in slot anyways, so I'm not caring about perfect damage optimization, especially with suboptimal gear. Fourfold, make sure everyone's full HP here. Check for vent, the north half was safe here. And this will determine if we're doing same side or west-east. We're doing same side south. We had set spread positions in the beginning, where healers take the back middle edge, range take the back corners. And we have a same site for the final also. Probably the best pattern for healers, since everyone's so clumped together. Party Finder, you gotta make sure you're paying attention to these stacks or spreads, since you're not gonna have anyone to call it out for you. And if you mess it up, you will probably get someone killed. Going for a dog 2. Dog 2 was really hard for me to conceptualize in the beginning, but I got the hang of it once I realized it's just going to 2 specific spots each time, and you can option select it. So group 1 in the front for standard PF strats, and wait for the flare to go off, and you immediately run to the middle regardless of if it's jump or dodge. You have to remember which side to go on after. You can follow the party since they're usually pretty good about things too, but I recommend that you pay attention also. You saw that I turned my camera earlier, so I could clearly see which the safe ending side would be. Drop a little mitt for the tanks. I didn't realize it, but the Dark Knight took a lot of bleed damage here, so I dropped a quick Benny. Didn't expect him to get that low, honestly. Just Dark Knight things, I guess. Going for a final snick 2. This is where you should pop Wings and Lilybell if you have it. Lilybell timings is usually for Dog 1 and Snake 2. If you get Dog 1 first, then you can also sneak in a Lilybell for 4-fold. So at this point, the boss is 49% HP, so it's a guaranteed kill if we don't die to mechanics. So it's not really a point in greeting more damage, but these guys are gamers, so they know how to flex, do the mechanics. And there you have it, 47% HP without even the final few autos and enrage. Very clean one pull fight. Overhealed a ton, but sometimes you got it in Party Finder. And again, damage isn't a concern with everyone having tons of upgraded tome gear and raid gear by now. Alright, onto the fun part. Man, this phase 2 was really tough to heal in Party Finder. As a healer, you have to make sure all of your heals are on point, and there's like very specific patterns you have to do. And missing one heal in one part will probably lead to a wipe. And you can't segment your heals either, like you can for DPS, where it's like summoners, you just do, oh yeah, do Ifrit phase and then Garuda phase. For healers, you have to individually plan out each specific heal, since they're not grouped up. They're not segmented like that. So reassigning clocks for phase 2. The tank is chatting on me by sticking west. So I'm going to go east anyways. I know tanks like taking the front. Tanks don't like being south for phase 2 because you can end up losing uptime. I'm okay with taking east, it's not a big deal. Doing classic spread spots beforehand because just NA things. Regen healer usually takes left side 3rd. Shield healer takes left side 4th. This is for Limitless Desolation. And people are calling out in the chat right now. if they're being the ice or fire flux for NA1. And I'm just letting my scholar know I'm deciding to be the fire baiter, which is farthest left side for fires. It's pretty important to decide with your partner. You won't always get that pattern, but most of the time you'll be with your partner for fire baits. People are discussing their Dominion mitts. I won't go into too much detail, but there should be a reprisal for each Dominion rig wide and all that good stuff. We're doing NA2 static baits right now, NA2 static spreads, and we're deciding on mid NA2, which didn't actually end up happening, but people are fast at adjusting. And we didn't first pull it since we actually did die to raw high concept 2 damage, since I think our mitts were a little overlapped, but we got that sorted out, and we end up clearing our second pull. So for White Mage specific, I Lily Bell NA1, NA2, and Dominion 2. I prep a Medica 2 in the beginning because tanks take a lot of damage. As a healer, you should also know your tank's invuln plans. Usually Warrior takes Tank Buster 1 and 4. The off tank takes Tank Buster 3, so you don't waste your resources. Warrior takes the first invuln, wait for 2 autos from the boss. 1, 2, and then drop your benediction. Me and the warrior get the NA2 buff. I like double regenning for the natural alignment buffed people, just so they don't bleed out. I know it's not completely necessary, but whatever gets the job done. So NA1, we have static spreads. I really like how Party Finder does it. It's usually pretty clean. Fire first. As a white mage, you should be using Lily Bell and Cure 3s after each hit. Feels like Cure 3 was perfectly designed for that specific strategy. Here the Scholar kind of kind of misclicks their shield out in nowhere, and the party decides to just ignore it. Stuff like that happens. Sometimes I throw my Asylum way on the edge of the map by accident too. High concept. Make sure everyone's topped off, and I like prepping a Cure 3 right when the hit happens so everyone's nice and healthy. I'm the 3 buff, so I'm going to the 3 marker. After everything happens, as the white mage, you should run middle and heal the party up. Medica 2s, Lily heals. I noticed Alpha and Gamma were used, so as 3, your priority is Gamma. The B did not resoak here, and we got lucky that it wasn't chosen, but you should resoak if you're unused. A lot of people in Party Finder thinks it isn't necessary, but I've had patterns where it was necessary, and it's an automatic failure if you don't resoak properly and it gets chosen. Just make sure you resoak on HC1. Limitless Desolation, make sure everyone is topped off for this. Everyone's topped off, they can survive the initial AoE and meteor hit without additional healing. And it'll be really hard to heal the DPS on the right since you're all the way on the left. And it's a pretty tight heal check after this since everyone isn't immediately spread. And this Cure 3 barely comes out in time. In retrospect, I should have Cure 3'd and then Lily'd since Lily's instant. Or even Swift cast my Cure 3, but I was kind of sure that it would go off in time. But I guess it worked out. Dark Knight Emblem's a third buster, wait for 2 autos, and Benediction. And NA2. Again, I popped double regen for the NA buffed. If you have the inverse, usually jump to signal its inverse, so we have spread first. Go to your static spreads and then group up in the opposite row. Basic stuff. You use your Lilybell for stack spread instead of fire ice, so it comes back in time for Dominion 2. We're doing ice first and then fire bait. Make sure you're Cure 3ing between the hits. And then dodge this meme cleave that people still somehow get hit by every now and then. Another red wide. Asylums and Medica 2s are really good here. Yes, I know Medica 2 is a DPS loss, but again, I'm focused on keeping people alive. It's better to overheal than to underheal. High Concept 2, make sure everyone's full HP. This does a lot of damage, even with mids. And I prep a Cure 3. I was buffless, so I'm merging for Ifrit. Make sure regens are ticking on the Ifrits, since it is a spicy bleed. Make sure you dodge the cleave. And here, if you're Ifrit or the first 2 tower soakers, you decide on which ad to pull. I'm singling I want the west ad, so I just drop down. Sprint to your ad if you're far, and sprint to drag it properly so you don't get clipped. So White Mage, do a HP check on everyone, make sure they're healthy. And right here, everyone needs to be full HP for the Ego Death. I don't care if your Blood Lily's already maxed out. You're using every heal you can to make sure people are full HP. And sometimes they miss a heal due to being out of range. And it's not worth creating a glare if someone gets slightly overkilled and loses the damage buff. I noticed the Sage mentioned in the chat they were flexing, and as their role partner, it's good to acknowledge when they say that so they know that you know. Spread for Doms. Checking if I get hit by the AoE. I didn't get hit, so I'm taking the healer tower. THMR. We got a no flex pattern for the first set of Doms. And right here, got extra mitts, pop them. Lilybell, Temperance. This one hurts, especially with the bleed. And people have to spread, so it'll be hard to heal people. Check if you get hit by the AoE. I didn't get hit again, so I'm taking the first set of towers. THMR, no fluxes again from anyone, so a pretty lucky pattern. Make sure you keep everyone topped off. I noticed the red mage was a little low, so I decided to throw Benny on him before this third raid wide. And third raid wide, I spread because I am mind flooded right now, but I remember this is the third one and we are home free. Throwing a Lily when the boss had 5k HP left and a crit for 135k, but whatever. Clear is a clear. Man, it was... Healing P8 was really tough. the focus and concentration you needed for hours and hours of progging or attempted clears at a time, joining parties where people joining in rage parties or people still mess up high concept 1. It was tough, man, but I knew the end was in sight, so I decided to tough it out. Spent basically an entire weekend just grinding, and ended up with a group of 7 other gamers who knew what to do. Alright, hope you guys found that somewhat useful or enlightening. If you're interested in a Party Finder specific guide where I go over Party Finder strats, let me know. If you are interested, make sure to sub so you don't miss out on it. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Take care.